Welcome to your Daily Beat announcements. We are your hosts, Caleb Rose.
And Caden Barnhart.
Up first, let's take a look at our top 5 news stories of the day.
Brown, and these are your top 5 news stories of the day. Number 1, extreme cold weather cuts power to millions of America across the states. Number 2, contagious UK virus strain found in Sedgwick County, Kansas, second variant case. Number 3, Michael Jordan donates $10 million to open new North Carolina health clinics. Number 4, NASA's Perseverance rover nears touchdown on Mars this week after 300 million mile journey. And number 5, a Chicago officer stops to help a stranded motorist and ends up delivering a baby.
Next, let's take a look at today's weather forecast.
Today's weather forecast for today, it's going to be cloudy with a few flurries or snow showers possible with a high of 21 with the winds to northeast at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tonight, a few clouds with low near 5 degrees with the winds to the north at 5 to 10 miles an hour. That's all for weather. Now back to you guys at home.
Now for a few school announcements.
If I was being chased by a polar bear, I would probably try to hide because they're huge, and so hopefully I can hide from them and they won't be able to find me.
If I encountered a polar bear, I would try and keep my distance, but I would want to go and pet it. But I know that's not a good idea, so I would try to keep my distance and maybe take a couple pictures of it.
If I encountered a polar bear, I would probably scream and run back into my house.
If I encountered a polar bear in real life, I would hide. I wouldn't run because that draws a lot of attention to yourself. And then I'd try and get away as soon as possible.
If I encountered a polar bear, I would like to think that I would act as though it was a grizzly bear and make myself as big as possible, but in reality, I know I would probably just cry and panic and run away.
If I encountered a polar bear, I would just feed it a steak and pat it on its back.
If I encountered a polar bear, I would full-on panic. There would be no doubt.
If I were to be encountered by a polar bear, I would run away.
I think that if I encountered a polar bear, I would try to hide in the snow.
If I encountered a polar bear, I would try to puff up my chest and growl back at it to try to intimidate it.
Find a tree and climb it because polar bears are too heavy to climb trees.
If I were to encounter a polar bear, I would just wrestle it because I'm built different.
If I were to encounter a polar bear, I'd probably just try to run the other way because there's no point in fighting it.
If I encountered a polar bear, if it hasn't seen me yet, I'd probably try and just kind of back away slowly. But if it has seen me, I'd probably try and run for the nearest, change in elevation, like a tree or just something to hide in, and then run if I have to.
If I encountered a polar bear, I would make this polar bear beat him up.
Up next, let's take a look at today's holidays.
Finally, a blast from the past. It's this day in history.
February 17th, 1992. In Milwaukee, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer receives a series of life sentences for his grisly string of murders. Dahmer had admitted to killing 17 young men and boys, some of whom he had mutilated and cannibalized. Just a few years later, Dahmer was beaten to death by a fellow inmate behind bars. 1801. In Washington, the House of Representatives breaks an electoral tie between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. The House chooses Jefferson to be America's third president. Burr became his vice president. 1996. World chess champ Garry Kasparov beats Deep Blue, the IBM supercomputer, in a 6-game match in Philadelphia.
I knew that I could learn much better because my opponent would need more time to learn and to come back with a really sophisticated counter strategy.
The following year, Kasparov loses to Deep Blue in a rematch. 1963.
I'm not afraid to take on a challenge. I'm not afraid to take a step. And if I fall, I pick myself up, I move on.
Michael Jordan, one of pro basketball's greatest all-time players, Its 1971 to 1975 album, still the best-selling album in the U.S. ever. Today in History, February 17th. Brian Thomas, The Associated Press.
That's all for today. Mask up, socially distance, avoid large gatherings, and stay classy, BC.